a month ago in Kaduna. And I said, if you want to know whether you can trust us or not, what do you have to do? Trust us.
That's the only way you can know whether we are trustworthy or not. You have to trust us. And then you will see whether we are worthy of your trust or not. And I hope you can trust us, because we espouse the belief that freedom of expression and the universal access to information, as enshrined in our Constitution, are important ingredients to the realization of the Transitional Stabilization Program. We also believe that this is in line with the Vision 2030. As you know, or you may have read, the TSP prioritizes media reform agenda, whose major objective is the creation of a national media landscape which is responsive to the needs and aspirations of our people. I heard Honorable Siwanda going on and on and on about the aspirations of our people. And I'm glad that what they are trying to do and what we are trying to do is aligned. So it is in this regard that the media, in its collective sense, should be a cog of enhancing the democratic ideals and also in articulating accessible to all, who help bring our people together and help Zimbabweans to tell their own story to the world. The evolution of the media sector into its desired vision can only be achieved through a team effort by various players, various stakeholders, and all of us. The threading theme in what we are doing as government is the industrialization of the media sector. So when we draft the media policy, as we are doing, when we are legislating, besides aligning our laws, when we take that extra mile to go beyond the minimum expected by our Constitution, what we are doing is looking at the industrialization of the media sector in Zimbabwe. The media, which includes arts and culture, and we are not taking anything from Minister Coventry. We are simply saying there's an overlap between what she does and what our ministry does, which is basically what government is doing. It encompasses the traditional media, the creative sector, and the platforms they ride on. As a government, we need a policy framework which talks to the revitalization of this sector, as envisaged in the Vision 2030. There is therefore a need to synchronize our priorities as entities and deal with media, information, film, and the arts sector. Only through such complementary efforts and the efforts from our stakeholders can we build a vibrant and industrialized media sector. As a policy, the framework we want and the framework we are charting towards is one that is with a value chain that encompasses investment, development, storage, retrieval, and the distribution of media products. This is what we want. This is where we are going. And what have we done as a way of activating and operationalizing that vision? Well, as I was having coffee, or what I managed to swallow of it, I was engaging with a lot of us here, because I know you. I don't know you from cyberspace or elsewhere. Well, from some stratosphere or elsewhere, rather. But I know you because I've met you physically. I know you because I've interacted with you. And I know you because you probably have come to my office or we have been on different fora together. That speaks to an engaging government and an engaging ministry. And I know you because some of you were in my office last week. And I know you because some of you were receiving assistance from the ministry officials. So, if it was another space, we would have called it a naming and shaming. But there is no shame. So there is no shaming. Because immigration and this ministry ensured that they came in the country and were assisted. And some of you will bear testimony to that. That speaks to the new dispensation. We are talking right now of a number of media houses that are in this country, operating freely. That's the vision of this government. Yeah, Stephen Saka is here. Steve Saka is here. This is the BBC. I can give you a number of names that are in this country right now and that are coming. That's us as a government operationalizing this vision. Yes, I heard some of you talking about, well, you said that we have a policy, I think it's lofty. You said we have a policy which is coming to reconcile with somebody else saying, for the last, well, we're going to 6 years, isn't it? From 2013, we had a new constitution which had not been aligned. Now, and then a year ago, a new leadership is put in place at the ministry. And at the start of the Second Republic. This leadership, which is at the ministry, has to do with two things. Number one, they need to align the law and to align the law as soon as yesterday. But they need to reform the media sector. And the country has never had a media policy. At all. Never. So you have these contesting interests, competing priorities. What do you do? The first is the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So the first thing that you will need to do is to say, let's align all our laws, or the laws that pertain to this industry, to that Constitution. But we also need to articulate the policy, which informs this. The articulation of the policy is what you're talking about, but the policy is already there, because the policy is the framework. What do we want to achieve? What do we envision? And what are the ideals that inform that vision? That's the policy. We were very happy because before then, most of you had participated in the IMPI. And a number of you, in our initial interactions, were talking of, where is the report? We have not seen the IMPI report. We spent $3 million and so on and so forth. And you were right to say so. What did we do as a ministry? Within 2 months, you all had the IMPI report and you lost interest. It's a fact. And then you went quiet about that. Or you do. You have it. I can tell those who don't know that we met on the 7th of December. And this thing came up again. We want the IMPI report. I assigned my colleagues in the ministry to bring it tomorrow, which was the 8th. And they brought a bus full of them, those IMPI reports. And, each one is around 600 pages. So we distributed them around the room. And 58 of them were left in that room. So who is sincere and who is not here? I don't know. And what did we do? We said, there has been a wide consultation. You are allowed to clap. We took that 600-page report, the IMPI report, and said, this is what our stakeholders said, and this is what our industry said, and this is what the Zimbabwean people said. From it, capturing these views, let's distill a film and media policy. So we were not doing anything away from the aspirations of the Zimbabwean people, because this is what you had said in that IMPI report. And we challenge everyone, when you look at that draft that Lofty was talking about, you will find that all the things that are in that draft are from IMPI. We're not bringing our own ideas. So, I hope that answers the question of why we did what we did and why we did it, how we did it. But regardless, when we are talking of media law reform, we are not only talking of aligning our laws to the Constitution, which is basically scrapping off IPA. No. We are talking of the modernization of our laws and media practices to bring them to modern times. It might not, the Constitution may not speak to that at all, but we are prepared to do it, and we were doing it. That's why we had all these consultations. And we're also talking of adopting those treaties we signed to and conventions we signed to as a government and as a country to ensure that our media laws and our media policies speak to same. So, when you open the Constitution, you will not find co-regulation. You will stretch the sections and clauses very much to come up with the concept. I'm sure your stretching may lead you to Section 249D. And then you'll think, yeah, but it kind of implies that there will be another regulator of some sort. Yeah, open it and read it right now. But as a government and ministry, we said it's a good principle. When you met with us, when I'm saying you, I mean most of you here, because as I said, this is not the first interaction we've had. You started from a point of view of self-regulation, as it was. We want to regulate ourselves. State, everyone else, no other institution, stay out. But that was not in line with the Constitution, was it? Because the Constitution expected some media regulation to be done by the ZMC. So this is where we came with co-regulation. And I understand your anxieties and worries, because you have seen a bill that was gazetted which did not have that concept. And I've told many of you, and there's no point in lying to you, because as we say, lies have got very short legs, or in many cases no legs at all. So they can't stand. Lies cannot stand because they have no legs. So I may tell you a lie today, but tomorrow where does it stand? So when I'm speaking about co-regulation, I'm saying when we went to cabinet with the principles that were supposed to underpin our media law, our media regulation, co-regulation was there. And it passed. And cabinet agreed with that. So at any point when I'm talking to you, Chairman, when I'm saying this is a principle we agree with, a principle we stand by, it's because it's a principle our government, through cabinet, has endorsed. So it's no longer whether it's an aligning issue or a modernization issue, a reform issue. It's a principle we stand by. But things don't work as well or in the same way we would have expected them to work. Because somehow, and I'm not playing a blame game, somehow the people that were in charge of aligning missed it. though the principal is there. And we fought, Dr. Gurira was there. We fought, and Ramahoso was there as well. I think Wachina Mora, I might have told you. Dr. Gurira, Ramahoso, and myself. We fought very hard. And yes, impressively, ZMC wanted the co-regulation in there. And they fought very hard to have it in there. So the ministry and ZMC were together and said, we want co-regulation in there. And we were advised that it was coming. It was going to be, well, the error would be corrected. It wasn't corrected before gazetting. And we raised the issue again. Lofty and I think Rihanna, I can't remember, came to see me and the ministry, the minister and I. And we discussed this. And in principle, again, we told them, this is the principle we stand by. And we were very clear that doctors, nurses, lawyers regulate themselves. What's wrong with our sector regulating itself? Of course, with the Constitution playing its role. So people went around the country, led by Sekuru, listening to views. Very good views. Some primed, some coached, some sincere. They are views regardless. It doesn't matter. They are views. If you have a view, you can build an advocacy for that view. It's all legal. It's appropriate. And I don't have a problem with that. But still, they are views. And the views were still in line with our own regarding this issue. So on the 4th of September, didn't we meet in Mtare? This was almost a parallel or a feedback conference where the views that had come from the outreach around the country were now given to the ministry. Unfortunately, I had an engagement in Parliament, so I could not be in Mutare. And several you were saying you had been given a short notice, but you were invited, but albeit late. But also I was invited to Parliament, albeit late. So I could not be in Mutare. But all the views that were expressed, the views that came from people, were there, were captured. And I was given a document which says, this is what our stakeholders have said. We read through them. Nothing was tangential to our thinking. Nothing. Except that the view that the ZMC should go under the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, which obviously would have not gone in line with the Constitution. Section 249F. So, that we could not do because the Constitution says something else. But other than that, we didn't see anything that we would say it's a red flag. Hence, we arranged a meeting with the Attorney General's office. Those are the ones who are in charge of drafting. And on the 7th of September, that meeting took place. Where now we had two documents to deal with. Document number 1, the PLC, the Parliamentary Legal Committee, had raised certain points to say that is out of the Constitution, or that is not really. So they raised their points, and we had to deal with that with our drafters. What's the vision of the ministry? What are the principles? Let's go back to the principles. What were the principles underpinning this document? And are we in line? So we responded to that. But we also brought in another document and said, okay, 3 days ago, we met in Mtare. And this is what our stakeholders said. And we have been walking this journey with our stakeholders since November 2018, 25 to 29, when we started our roundtable consultations, when we asked you to send us position papers. So we still wanted to continue to work in tandem with our stakeholders. And then we said, how do we incorporate these views? So I'm responding to the bit about people who have gone for an outreach, the people who have spoken, and yet now the ministry is coming up with certain amendments. There is no contradiction in this. It's actually the ministry taking and incorporating those views that came. Okay, we could wait and simply say, Chairman, present your report. But at this point, we still got an opportunity to say, Yes, Chairman, you presented, you have the report that's coming, but we have a position already, and this is a position we have no problem with this at all. This is what we are doing. So there's nothing to panic about. You panic or you worry because you don't trust us. But I said, trust us. Chimbotis trust mubone. Mo tanga kuti avatrustiki. Kana ta disappoint that trust. So, out of that, as I said, we're dealing with two documents. One was a very formal document, which is the report from the parliamentary, the PLC, legal committee. Then, your views as our stakeholders. So, the processing of these documents is very different. The PLC is formal. We have got a legal obligation to do it this way. So, we responded. The president speaks about bureaucracy a lot. I hate it too. Because things get lost, things are delayed, there are bottlenecks here and there. And there is lethargy as well. Somehow, in between the 7th and today, or last week, the document that, after our drafters did the document, they sent it to us, we said that's correct, that's our view. What you have drafted reflects our view. I had a conversation with Sekuru there. And I assured him, I spoke to the two documents, and I said, we have a document that says this. He said he wanted a copy. We did not deny you a copy, Sekuru. We just didn't have it. And so, the response should go to Parliament. The drafters were telling us the response has gone to Parliament, and we said, can we have a copy? Parliament was telling us that they do not have this document. In between, something is wrong. He retrieved the letter they had sent us to say, can you look through whether we have captured your positions? Well, by there I mean the AG's office. So, on Monday, we started last week, we phoned Honorable Samkange. We chased the PLC to say, do you have our document? And he says he doesn't have it. Then we say, okay, we have another copy. Can we meet and go through this document with you so that we reconcile our position, so that we didn't want an adverse report, obviously, but we also wanted to see where they were coming from, because clearly some of those things they were saying was total misinterpretation of what the bill said. Obviously, there were concessions in certain places. That meeting could not happen, but we met on Monday, Honorable Samkange and I, 4 days ago. We went through every one of the points that had been raised, and we found each other ready to move. But there's still a document that's missing. The document that captured your views. Now, I'm not a parliamentarian. I don't know what Honorable Shanda say, but I stand educated. So I said, we've got these views that came from our stakeholders. And these are the same views that came from the outreach to the citizenry. Where do they come in? Because, this now we've dealt with, but how about this? That we said we wanted. And core regulation was still at the heart of what was missing. And I was assured that the minister will present a notice of amendment which incorporates all these views. The notice of amendment will be given after, I think, your report to Parliament. This is a process which you and I are not really interested in, because we're interested in one thing. Are the principles we agreed in our stakeholder engagements in there? Are the views the views we found each other, the views in which we converged, are they in there? I think that's our interest. These bureaucratic processes and procedures and whatever are of little interest, thankfully, to both of us as stakeholders. But this is where we are at, where we are expecting that when we go into reading, your views will be said and the notice of amendment will be presented to Parliament, and the principle of co-regulation will be in there. That's our expectation, and that's what we're driving. And you will not find any resistance from anybody at any point, as far as the government is concerned. Because including the Minister of Justice, we've had so many meetings and we say, what's happening with your team? We want this principle in there. Because ZMC had been busy. If we do not have the first tier of regulation from the industry itself, it means the ZMC will be inundated with complaints and so forth. They have no capacity. They are not funded enough to have capacity to deal with everything that comes from everyone. So at least the first filtering and the screening would be dealt with. When the matters escalate, then obviously the ZMC will do its constitutional role. I hope I've done justice to the issue of co-regulation and the processes. Sekuru. Yeah. Shumba, you say community radio stations, we don't know what the policy is, we don't know where the ministry is going. La-di-da. But Sekuru, we have the Broadcasting Service Act, which is very clear on how the community radio stations should look. We may have our thinking right now, and we have tried. We started the process of amending the BSA to modernize it because it's still speaking to 2001 technology and things that obtained then. 2001 is a very long time ago when you talk of broadcasting and that sector, because technology moves very fast. Some of the things it's speaking about now is obsolete. So we need it to be relevant to this space and time. So, but we decided as a policy position that we cannot wait to amend the Broadcasting Services Act and then bring in the community stations. We need them to come in now. And I don't know what conversation we can have with our regulators, with our overseers in this particular case, because what we need to do is implement the law. The 3-tier broadcasting system that was envisaged in the Broadcasting Service Act of 2001 should be implemented and implemented now, and that's the way we are going. So you ask, as our stakeholders, when? The short answer is now. Some of you are aware that I think it's Friday when we inducted the broadcasting, the BAZ board, the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe board. This is us moving in that direction to ensure that the governance is in place. And I hear it to quote you. I'm getting it from the grapevine that the board met yesterday and they set up the necessary committees. Now, yesterday was a Wednesday. A board has been put in place on Friday. They've been inducted. On Wednesday, they've already met. Talk of expeditious working. And the committees, I think there are 7 or something, have been put in place. Obviously, the committees would include a committee, I hope, because we didn't prescribe this. I hope they have a committee that sift through these applications and make recommendations, and then we go into whatever public inquiry process. But from a ministerial point of view, and as government, our expectation is that soon, and very soon, we shall see the adverts in the paper calling for applicants. Now, we do not mediate that process, colleagues. We do not, because we want this authority to operate as independently as possible. So whilst it's easier and it's therapeutic even to attack the ministry and government, because obviously when you are being perceived as this big monolith which is not engaging, which is impervious to inputs and innovations from stakeholders, it's understandable that people may perceive you that way and attack you that way. But no, we are not interfering with this process. Those who listened to what we said on Friday, I particularly said, if no call has been made to the licensing authorities, for applicants and applications to license the 6 television stations we have capacity for and the community stations, then the board is not doing its job. But I believe this side of Christmas and this side of the year, we will have a process in full swing. I'm not saying we would have somebody licensed, because the process is long, in the sense that an advert will go. And then the time is given of when the applicants or applications would close. And only after the applications have been closed, that's when we started these public inquiries. Remember, we are distributing a national resource, and a limited one for that matter. So it means that we can't just dish, to all and sundry, without the public saying, hang on, why would we consider you? So this is a process. We hope we can shorten it, but some of these timelines have been put in place for a reason of fairness. So the process that we started when we went into office has gained momentum. And this is where we are at. Yes, I can only speak now for the Second Republic to say, yeah, it might have taken us a year to be where we are, but give us some credit, please. Because this thing should have happened in 2001. We're in 2019, and you are judging harshly a year in which we needed a board to be in place, and in which every step of the way we consulted, we spoke to you, we engaged with you, and we took your input. And you know what was happening in June. You know exactly what we're doing in April, because we met. You know what we're doing in February, because we met. We were meeting all the time. So you knew where we were. It's disingenuous to now pretend that we were not doing anything, we were just playing delaying tactics. No. We were working at this, and you know it. Our vision is to work together, to build this industry together, to ensure that Zimbabweans can make informed life choices. Those life choices, they could be political, they can be economic, they can be whatever sphere you're talking about, they may be social. But for Zimbabweans to be able to do that, they should have all the information they need. And for them to have that information should come from diverse platforms. That information should come from a diversified media sector. And I believe that's the only way we can even deal with fake news. Because fake news occupies the space that the real-time, genuine news should occupy. So if nobody speaks, if information is not there, then something else will occupy it. And normally, that thing is fakery. I thank you.
Morning, everyone. I'm taking over from Delta for this session, and I'll just facilitate the next session, especially just the feedback session that with the two presenters that are coming. My name is Patience Zirima. I'm the Director for Media Monitors. Thank you very much, Mr. Mangwana, for your presentation. I found it very enlightening in terms of what the ministry plans to do and the next steps and all the efforts that you've been making as a ministry to work with stakeholders, the consultations, and I think colleagues around the room agree with me that this is very much appreciated. I was very interested when you started speaking around what informs the ministry's policies and where the ministry is going, especially when you talked about the TSP, Vision 2030, the industrialization of the media sector. I am finding it's a little bit difficult. Maybe at some point you can also be able to help me out here to really see the connections between the vision, especially around industrialization, and the principles around democratization. If you look at the way the media sector is developing right now at a very practical level, the cross-media ownership that is there, the rise of these big conglomerates, I don't think it's as obvious right now, but the rise of these big conglomerates that have been in the media sector, but that are growing much larger. It really speaks to your policy in terms of industrialization. But where does that leave the democratic principles and practices that we want? When we are looking at the media law reform process, we are looking a lot around the democratization of the sector. We're looking at the principles and trying to implement the principles, but then when I look at it, the principles are in law, but they're not in practice. So I would want to really understand how then issues around freedom of expression, issues around diversity, plurality are going to be safeguarded in terms of in the manner that the media sector is developing currently. I think that when we are looking at the processes, especially when we are looking at industrialization, we are looking at this happening within a context of a very skewed process of democratization, which has disadvantaged a lot of groups. It has disadvantaged the rural people in rural areas, women, poor people, because there is no commercial viability in terms of the media houses that are actually there and who their target is going to be. Almost every media organization that's operating is operating at a commercial level. There are very few organizations, or very few, that are funded here and there that are actually looking at the interests of the majority of people. But then maybe just to get that clarity in terms of when we are looking at the industrialization and how the media is developing currently, how do we balance this out with the democratization agenda that I think we all are fighting for? I won't take up too much of your time. Right now, I'll call upon our first respondent to the minister's speech. I will take questions at the end of the two presentations. We've got two respondents. Our first one is going to be Jacqueline Chikakano. She's a legal expert, and she's going to be the first respondent. You can come up, Jackie.
Thanks, Patience. I'm not sure if I am really built to respond exactly to what the Permanent Secretary has said. Rather, I have a brief to speak around opportunities, around the alignment process, the constitutional and legal reform process. Maybe just to say what the Permanent Secretary also shared, like he said, I was part of the people who were present in Kadoma when he shared at the Zimbabwe Institute CSO Consortium meeting, and he gave almost similarly the same update that he gave. I suppose the only new thing for me was the fact that bureaucracy has somehow gotten into the way of the expected progress in as far as submission of the additional input that was given to Parliament. And what I found, before I go on to talk about the opportunities available within the ongoing alignment process, I just noted also of interest to me is the fact that the fact that the alignment process, particularly for media laws, is concerned, has sort of like moved very much, maybe to almost beyond the mandate of the alignment process. The fact that that has happened, and that the final product that was that came out of cabinet did not, as Tabani shared, please the media industry or meet their expectation. The fact that we find ourselves there, for me, I found the Permanent Secretary's remarks quite encouraging, because it indicated the existence of opportunities beyond where we feel that we can influence, whether within the IMT process or otherwise. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that I found it encouraging that beyond the processes that we thought we could influence, there is still an open door policy and an opportunity, I believe, for the ministry to sort of welcome further input, and the fact that the ministry is also still willing to consider further input, even when at this particular point in time the matter has sort of moved to Parliament. So I'd like to emphasize that and say it is encouraging. And to also link it to what Honorable Baraza said about mourning, about the fact that the media industry is continually mourning, to say what we learn from there is that there is still an opportunity up until the bills are debated and up until the bills are adopted for us to continually influence the process. And what I also heard in my remarks is the fact that we need to be alive to the fact that opportunities to influence the media law reform process continue up and even when the bills are before Parliament, is what has come out from the Permanent Secretary's remarks. So this is just to say, to also respond to what Honorable Paradza said, to say you have complaints, but what have you done about it? One of the things that I found useful, even when we are talking about the influencing at the IMT process, is the fact that there is need for CSOs to come up with concrete suggestions of what we need the media laws to look like. Even as far as core regulation is concerned, do we have, as a media industry, for example, text of what we expect the ZMC bill to look like? Do we have? Lofty. We do. Has that been submitted? Perfect. So this is just to say, one of the major things that I found in my experience is working with the IMT, within the IMT working group, is the fact that there are a number of things that we say as the media industry in terms of what we expect. But more often than not, we do not go deeper to reflect and come up with exactly what we expect these media laws to look like. Tsitsi mentioned the issue of exclusion of the content producers and the filmmakers. Do we have tangible texts of what we expect the policy framework to look like, for example? So that is perfect. So I just wanted to say that I do not have anything directly to respond to what the Permanent Secretary has said, but I found it heartwarming that he made mention of, sorry, excuse me. Sorry. I found it heartwarming that he explained one aspect that I already wanted to express around the availability of ample opportunities for the media to influence the law reform processes beyond the IMT. And I wanted to emphasize that. Now moving on to the brief that I was given in terms of what I need to speak to with respect to the IMT processes and the opportunities that exist therein. I wanted to say that it's probably important for us to make note that the mandate of the IMT, as far as media laws are concerned, for me, is almost over. Some of you may know that the IMT, which is the technical vehicle that was created by government to spearhead the alignment process, its sphere of influence begins from when a ministry makes a request for support to align laws up until the bill, or at least the draft bill, has been gazetted, passed by cabinet and has been gazetted. So if we look at the media-related laws, Freedom of Information, the Zimbabwe Media Commission Bill, as we already appreciate, these are already at Parliament. So in as far as the opportunities that exist for influencing the IMT process is concerned, those are almost minimal. And when it comes to other bills, the Broadcasting Services Act, the PS made reference to the fact that reform of this bill is ongoing. You might want to know, because we are here gathered to try and find out to what extent we can still influence the process as far as media laws are concerned. You might know, or some of you might not know, that consultations for the Broadcasting Services Act were done together with those of the ZMC and the Freedom of Information Bill. The PS referred to the December workshops, that is where it was done. Another opportunity that existed was to influence the actual drafting of this bill, as with other bills. That platform is held between the consulting ministry and the IMT technical committee, particularly spearheaded by the drafting committee. Again, that particular process was already done when the drafting workshop for the Zimbabwe Media Commission, the Freedom of Information Bill, was conducted sometime in March or April this year. So again, in as far as influencing the IMT process at that, as far as the BSA is concerned, the boat has almost sailed. But I think what is important for us to note is the fact that, as has been alluded, the ministry, I suppose, is still seized with the matter or the interest of ensuring that, like he said, to quote him, the bill is as modern as possible and conforms to regional and international standards as much as is possible. So at this particular juncture, the bill, I suppose, is still before cabinet. It is still with the drafters. So I'm mentioning this so that we know that in as much as the ZMC and the Freedom of Information Bill are already at Parliament, opportunities still exist in as far as influencing the Broadcasting Services Act is concerned. I began my talk by emphasizing that even though the IMT no longer has anything to do in as far as influencing the content, what has emanated or what has come out clearly from what the Permanent Secretary was saying is that even if we come to a point where Cabinet passes a certain version of the bill, whether it's the BSA or the other outstanding bills, the opportunity still remains for us to continually influence the content of the bills, even beyond cabinet. So having said that, I will not speak at length around opportunities within the IMT, like I've said, but I'll continue to speak to other bills, media-related bills, and the opportunities for influencing reform that exist there. We've mentioned the ZMC and the Freedom of Information, the BSA. Another bill where we still have a window of opportunity to influence is the Protection of Personal Information Bill, which I believe is in cabinet. Exactly. So that's the third bill emanating from IPA. And it's important, again, for us to note that since it's still within CCL, as with the BSA, opportunities for us to influence the content of that bill still remains. And that's opportunities to influence the ministry and opportunities to influence Parliament itself. I think Honorable Sibanda spoke a great deal about the fact that civil society has a role to play in as far as capacitating the committee to execute its oversight duties is concerned. The ZMC, the Freedom of Information, the BSA, and the POPI, which is the Protection of Personal Information Bill, I suppose are the major bills that the media has been seized with. But beyond that, if you look at the IMT process and the IMT bill tracker, which firstly outlines the laws that the IMT is looking to align with the Constitution, as well as track progress. If you look at it, you will find that aside from these bills that we have sort of been obsessed with as the media, there exist other bills that have an impact on the operations of the media. And there, in those bills, opportunities to influence the kind of content that goes in still exist. Of course, for some of these bills, or in fact, all of them that I'm going to mention, they are basically two. They do not fall within the purview of the Ministry of Information, but like I have said, they have an impact on how the media operates. For example, the Interception of Communications Act is one of the bills that is included in the IMT's bill tracker. And if I may ask a question, how much work have we done in terms of influencing the content that goes into the Interception of Communications Act? Anyone? Nigel, where is Nigel? And I pose this question because, again, going back to my original brief to speak about opportunities within the IMT, if you look at the bill tracker, nothing has been done in as far as the Interception of Communications Act. And like I said earlier on, whether or not and when processes begin to align a law rests on the parent ministry. Unless and until they make a request to say we want to do something about this particular bill, nothing happens. As you may know, the Interception of Communications Act falls under the bills under the President's office. And nothing has been done. And yet it falls within the IMT. If we look at how the IMT operates, there are preparatory phases where they will research, they'll come up with discussion papers that outline the extent to which the laws must be reformed. They will do drafting instructions to instruct a drafter to come up with the first draft of the bill. They will also input even into the drafting of the cabinet principles, and then perhaps consultations will be done, the magnitude of which varies depending on the bill. So one of the things that I have noticed, having also been working within the IMT framework, is that as an industry, the media waits, or rather CSOs wait for an announcement that we are now working on this bill for them to want to do anything. So the point I'm trying to put across is that opportunities in as far as direct media-related bills are concerned may have passed in as far as the IMT is concerned. But opportunities still remain in terms of other bills that have an impact on how the media operates, like the Interception of Communications Act, as well as the recently announced Cybercrime, Cybersecurity and Data Protection Act. So what we need to be seized with is the fact that in as far as the IMT is concerned, although there is a standard consultation process that will be unveiled, my experience has been there is no need to wait for that official process to be announced. But, okay. There is no need to wait for the official consultation process to be announced. But there is every window of opportunity for the CSOs, whether it is the media or non-media related, to take advantage of the fact that the laws are placed on the alignment agenda and begin to influence the content of those bills from the word go. I asked the question around the Interception of Communications Act. We all know of the impact that it has in as far as interception of communications, which should be of interest to the media because we're in the business of communicating. But up to date, from the time that I left the IMT framework, which is recently, I didn't see anything that came from media stakeholders or other stakeholders on which was an effort to try and influence how the Interception of Communications Act should be amended. And the same thing applies to the Cybercrimes and Data Protection Act. I know MISA has done a bit. There have been some recommendations that have been given. But to what extent have we, even as a collective, as a media industry, to what extent have we come up with a unified position on what we want to see in as far as the Cybercrimes and Cyber Security and Data Protection Act? So in conclusion, I want to say, to recap the points that I was speaking to. Number one, in as far as the media-related laws, the direct laws are concerned, the IMT as a vehicle of influence has passed that stage. We should rather focus ourselves on continually engaging the ministry and on continually and effectively engaging Parliament. There is opportunities to make submissions at Parliament or even to submit legal opinions to the PLC. How much of those opportunities have we taken advantage of? And speaking of Parliament and opportunities for reform, one of the things that I've noticed is the fact that there is a gap in as far as the ability of us CSOs and media stakeholders to harness public input, or at least to draw the public in numbers to articulate the issues. Because at the end of the day, the work that we are doing as the media is for the benefit of the public. What we have mostly seen in those public hearings are media stakeholders articulating the issues because you know them. But how many of people, our general citizens, appreciate these issues, and how many are utilizing the opportunities and the platforms that are given by Parliament to also articulate those issues with an understanding of how it impacts on their rights? And the other thing that I also want to leave you with is that we also need to begin to think as an industry on implementation of the Constitution beyond the passing of laws, because constitutional alignment is just but one component of implementation of the Constitution. Just because the Freedom of Information Bill is going to be passed tomorrow, that doesn't mean that the media industry is going to transform. It doesn't mean that the rights accruing to the media are going to automatically be enjoyed. How much are we already beginning to do in as far as influencing other mechanisms that are critical to ensure that the Constitution is fully implemented in as far as the Constitution is concerned? And also lastly to say, when you also think about other platforms that can be influenced as far as media reform is concerned, I was speaking the other time in Kadoma that what I've also noticed in as far as media reforms and other reforms is that there is a conflation of constitutional reform issues and other media reform issues and other even institutional reform issues. Just because some issues have not gone in to the bills that are being aligned around constitutional alignment does not mean that the opportunity to influence reforms has been lost. Aside from the ministry, which will always be there to engage whether on constitutional issues or other non-constitutional issues, there exist other opportunities for engagement. And one of them, which I want to leave you with, is the Law Development Commission. How many of you have engaged with the Law Development Commission, particularly with the realization that not all issues are constitutional issues? The Law Development Commission is there with a wide mandate to be looking into what needs to be changed in terms of the law, what needs to be reformed, and making recommendations on those reforms to the Ministry of Justice under which they fall. So this is to say, let's look beyond the IMT. Even when the IMT vehicle has gone, opportunities continue to rest with the ministry, opportunities continue to rest with the Parliament, opportunities continue to rest with other entities like the Law Development Commission. There is always more that can be done in as far as influencing media reforms is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. That was very insightful, especially the opportunities that exist beyond just the ministry, beyond Parliament. And yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of proposals that are being written right now. People like Wanda are going to receive a lot of those. Anyway, I would like to call upon our next presenter right now, who's going to talk about a broader CSO position on the gazetted bills, that is the Freedom of Information and ZMC bills. She's from the Zimbabwe Institute. I hope that the name is still the same, Brenda Manonari. She's with the Zimbabwe Institute. They are coordinators of the Civil Society Constitutional Consortium. She's going to do a PowerPoint. I hope that can be set up. Would you like to present from there? Okay.